I think if you have attended this series in the past, you will recognize that we try to make a connection with something about Minnesota. So we have a tradition of inviting someone from Minnesota to say a few words on the importance of the issue at hand to the state of Minnesota. And this year, invited guest is Mr. Jerry Lynch. Jerry is Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer for General Mills, where he has worked since 1995. He leads the company's sustainability efforts globally. In addition, Jerry serves on the advisory board of the Repertoire Center at the University of Minnesota, also on the Food Recovery Network, and also on the board of trustees of the Keystone Center. He was a corporate panelist at the statewide climate adaptation conference in January this year, and we got Jerry because of Mark Seeley. Okay, Mark knows everybody, and so we appreciate, Jerry, you're coming over here. Please welcome Mr. Lynch.
Thanks, Satish. Thanks to Dr. Gupta and Dr. Rosen for inviting me. I am the warm-up band for the Hatfield Rockstar show soon to follow, and I hope in some time before my life ends that I can achieve that stature. I just thought I would share with you a little bit about the connection of the work that this organization does and the science that it's focused on with the real world of food production and the food business. I work for a small food company just up the road here. We sell about $19 billion worth of food every year in 140 plus countries around the world. And so this is a very, very important topic for us, and it's great to have such incredible resources right in our own backyard. When we think about food, this is just a picture of our food production system. We take the output of Mother Nature, we transform it into products to meet the nutrition needs of consumers in their busy and hectic lives today. We ship it to our customers typically in retail outlets, and then customers prepare that food at home. The front end of this whole system for all of us is Mother Nature and her ability to continue to produce the food that we need for our everyday lives. So it's important to each of us as individuals. It's very important to us as a company as well. If the front end of that engine breaks down, our business either doesn't work or becomes so expensive that we're serving a very small piece of the population. So, and there's lots of signs that it's under a lot of pressure, that the system of Mother Nature is under a lot of pressure. And so we are paying a lot of attention to that, because it's important that it continues to work well for all of us to have what we need, and it's important to, quite honestly, to our business. So I know climate and water are kind of the tee-up for today. I just thought I'd share with you. We look at our enterprise-wide carbon footprint every year. And so when we look at it for the full value chain, not just within our own four walls. So we look from what we call seed to landfill, and hopefully someday seed to seed. So if you look at that, the vast majority of that carbon footprint is actually in agriculture for us. So the system of producing food has a footprint, and it also is a recipient of that footprint. As the climate changes, as there's stress on water, it becomes more difficult to grow those ingredients. And so it's important that we do our part to address it. So we have an ambition. We want to get to sustainable emission levels across that full value chain by 2050. We want to reduce that, which would mean today, the best science would say that needs to be a reduction of somewhere between 40 and 70% across the full value chain, so that we don't tip the 2 degree table. And we want to make the first tranche of that by 2025, taking out 28% of that. So we have a pretty big ambition there to make change. And if we're going to make change, this is the biggest place to go hunting for us, is in agricultural production. We also look at our water footprint. So when we look at our water footprint, it's even more extreme. When we look seed to landfill, the use of water 99% of the water that's used in our value chain is actually upstream. In agriculture, only 1% is actually in the production, and the rest of the system is actually pretty minimal. It doesn't even register when we measure it. So that's equally important for us. But water is a different attack system, right? It can be very localized, and so I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing there. So I just wanted to give you a flavor for how we're starting to action against this, because it's very important for us. One of the things that we're doing is we're doing a lot of work in row crops through a multi-stakeholder collaboration called Field to Market that has everybody along the value chain participating, all the way from the seed companies to producer groups and farmer groups and companies like ours, and environmental NGOs and academic partners along the way. These are the things that we look at. We're measuring in row crops these kinds of environmental impacts. This is actually our first pilot where we've been working the longest in Idaho on wheat. And we've been able to move the dial on just about every one of these metrics, including something that's very important, that's yield to the farmer. Because this has to work systemically. It has to work for farmer economics, and it has to work for the environment at the same time. And there are ways that we can do that. Secondly, we're doing a lot of work in dairy. And so many of you may not know, Yoplait is a big yogurt brand that we sell. And so dairy is our single biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions. And so we're working with dairy co-ops that we partner with to look at both the crops that the cows eat as well as the animal themselves, and managing the back end of the cow, if you will, and emissions there. Finally, in water, as I mentioned, is a little bit of a different attack mode. So water quantity particularly, one of the things that we've done is partnered with the Nature Conservancy, a large environmental NGO, and we asked them to look at the 85 most important watersheds to us, whether we had a facility there where we produce food or whether we're sourcing a lot of ingredients from a particular watershed. And we had them rank them based upon risk, and so you can see the risk profile here on the left-hand side. And we said, we just want to understand the nature of the risk here. And we're now doing work in 8 of these watersheds, the 8 riskiest. We have an ambition that by 2025, all of them will have a stewardship plan in place that's being activated against. Many watersheds don't even have a stewardship plan to look out for the health of that watershed, both from a water quantity and a water quality point of view. And it's really important that, particularly in the highest risk watersheds, we get to that level. So we're championing that work. It is uber collaboration, one of my colleagues calls it, because in any one watershed, the most amount of water that our value chain is responsible for is 0.2%. So even if we do all the right things, it won't make a difference in the watershed if everybody's not pulling in the same direction. And you can imagine, you can only guess, 2 of those 8 are in California for obvious reasons. The amount of production that's going on there, and the quantity situation, and really the lack of really good governance systems when it comes to agricultural groundwater. Lastly, we're involved in the policy front. So we participated in a forum where we brought American farmers to Paris for the COP21 negotiations to represent the food sector and the importance of coming to an agreement to address greenhouse gas emissions globally. It really does have to be addressed globally so that none of us are put in an uncompetitive situation, and to represent that agriculture has a real opportunity to be a big part of the solution here. So I've been talking a lot with both Dr. Rosen and Dr. Gupta and our next speaker about soil health, for instance, which is a real opportunity to be, we think, a big part of the solution going forward, both from a carbon perspective, but so many other things. Water management, water quality management, water retention, and overall health, biodiversity health. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but we're very focused on this because it's very important for what we do in the future and the future of our food system. We've been around 150 years. We have every intention of being around another 150 years, but in that time scale, we've got to, as a society, address some of these challenges, and so we're working very hard on that, and it's great to have the kind of expertise that's based here, and that we'll hear from Jerry in a minute to be able to tap into. So with that, do I turn it back over to you?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's give Jerry a big hand.